You should be grateful she even gave you a chance after the cheating, so I blocked them all. Now I'm thriving, and they're still wondering why such a nice boy disappeared. For 3 years, I built my life around Jessica. It wasn't a grand, dramatic construction, but something I thought was more durable, a steady, reliable foundation. I was the guy who remembered her mom's birthday, who learned how to make her favorite lasagna from scratch, who drove across the city at 11 p.m. to bring her cold medicine because her voice sounded stuffy on the phone. I was her fixed point, her North Star. I thought that was a good thing. The cracks didn't appear all at once. They were hairline fractures, almost invisible until the whole structure gave way. It started with the jokes. Little comments about my job as a data analyst. Must be nice to just play with spreadsheets all day, she'd say, laughing, but her eyes wouldn't join in. Then it was my friends. Mike is so settled. Doesn't he ever want to do anything spontaneous? My reliable Honda Civic became the beige mobile. Our cozy Friday nights in with a movie were suddenly predictable. I wrote it off as stress. Her new marketing job was demanding, and she was surrounded by what she called movers and shakers. She'd come home, buzzing with stories about client dinners at rooftop bars and team-building retreats. She started talking about a guy named Mark from her office. It was always Mark. Mark just closed the Anderson account single-handedly, she'd say, her voice tinged with a weird pride. He's so aggressive in meetings. It's kind of amazing to watch. Aggressive can be good, I guess, I'd offer, stirring the pasta sauce. She'd look at me, a faint, pitying smile on her face. It's not just good, Alex. It's necessary. You can't be nice and expect to get what you want in this world. I should have seen it then, but I was too busy being nice. Too busy being her foundation. The night I found out, it wasn't some dramatic, tear-streaked confession. It was a casual cruelty, which somehow made it worse. She was getting ready for a work thing, spending an extra 20 minutes on her makeup. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table, and a preview of a text message lit up the screen. It was from Mark. Mark, can't wait to see you. Wearing that black dress? Winky face. The world didn't slow down. It just got very, very quiet. The hum of the refrigerator faded into a distant whine. I picked up her phone. My thumbprint still unlocked it. I didn't have to scroll far. The messages were a gut punch of intimacy and planning, littered with emojis and inside jokes that painted a vivid picture of the last 2 months of my girlfriend's double life. She walked out of the bedroom, spraying perfume on her wrists. All right, I'm heading out. Don't wait up. It might be late. She stopped when she saw me, saw the phone in my hand, saw the look on my face. Her expression didn't shift to guilt or panic. It just hardened. The performance was over. Jessica, I said, my voice eerily calm. What is this? She let out a short, exasperated sigh, as if I'd asked her to take out the trash. Okay, fine. You weren't supposed to find out like this. Find out what? That you're cheating on me with Mark. God, don't be so reductive, Alex. It's not just cheating. She walked over and snatched the phone from my hand. It's a connection. It's passion. With you, everything is so scheduled. So safe. Mark is unpredictable. He's exciting. He makes me feel desired, not just maintained. The words were like bullets, each one finding its mark. Maintained. I looked at the woman I'd loved for 3 years, the woman I'd planned a future with, and I saw a stranger. So after all this time, I said, my hands curling into fists at my sides, the only outward sign of the earthquake inside me. After everything we've built together, you're just leaving? For a guy from the office. She shrugged, a dismissive, fluid motion that shattered my heart into 1,000 icy pieces. I'm not leaving. I'm choosing. I'm choosing a life that doesn't put me to sleep by 9 p.m. I'm choosing a man who actually has ambition. You should try it sometime. But you won't. You'll just find another nice, boring girl and build another nice, boring life. She walked to the door, pulling it open. The finality in the action was breathtaking. It's over, Alex. Be an adult about it. The door clicked shut. I stood there in the silence of the apartment we shared, surrounded by the furniture we'd picked out together, under the roof I paid for, and I felt nothing but a cold, hollow wind blowing through the ruins of what I thought was my life. The phone rang an hour later. It was her mother, Carol. I almost didn't answer, but some deep-seated, stupid sense of politeness made me pick up. Alex, honey. Carol's voice was syrup-sweet, laced with condescension. Jessica called me. She's upset, of course. This is all very difficult. I said nothing. I just listened to the silence on my end, waiting. Look, she continued, her tone shifting to one of mild scolding. I know you're hurt, but you need to be realistic. My Jessica is a beautiful, special girl. She has a light in her. Frankly, you should be grateful she even gave you a chance. A lot of boys wouldn't have gotten that. I felt the air leave my lungs. Grateful. She's just spreading her wings, Alex. Don't be the anchor that holds her back. Be a man, accept it, and walk away with some dignity. Dignity. That was the word that did it. The word that cut through the shock and the pain and ignited a cold, clear flame of purpose inside me. Carol, I said, my voice flat and devoid of all the emotion churning inside me. Thank you for clarifying everything. I ended the call. I didn't hang up angrily. I just pressed the red button and placed the phone gently on the table. Then, I started to block them. Jessica, Carol, her sister, her two best friends who had always looked at me with a sort of amused tolerance. One by one, I digitally erased them. It was the first, quiet, definitive step of my disappearance. The nice boy was about to vanish, and he was never coming back. The next morning, I didn't wake up heartbroken. I woke up clear. The fog of 3 years had lifted, leaving behind a stark, simple landscape. There were no more questions, no more doubts. There was only the path forward. I called my boss, David, the moment his line opened at 8 a.m. David, it's Alex. That remote position on the West Coast team, is it still available? There was a pause on the other end. It is. I thought you turned it down because Jessica, I've had a change in circumstances, I said, my voice even and professional. I'd like to transfer immediately. I can be fully operational by next Monday. That's quick. Everything all right, Alex? Everything is clear, I said, and I meant it. I'm ready for a change. He heard the finality in my voice. Okay, I'll make the call. Welcome to the team. I spent the next 2 days operating with the efficiency I didn't know I possessed. I wasn't packing up a life. I was conducting an evacuation. I took only what was mine, my clothes, my books, my laptop. I left the framed photos, the throw pillows she loved, the set of expensive knives we'd gotten as a wedding gift from a relative who jumped the gun. I wasn't being spiteful. I was being practical. They were artifacts from a civilization I was no longer a part of. The only thing I took that was ours was the small, sturdy rubber plant I'd bought for our first anniversary. It had thrived under my care. It felt like a symbol of something I could still nurture. I found a tenant to sublet my half of the apartment, a quiet graduate student who handed me a cash deposit without asking many questions. I hired movers to put my few boxes into a storage unit until I found a place out west. On my last night in the apartment, I slept on a sleeping bag on the floor. The emptiness echoed, but it was a clean sound. It was the sound of space. The next morning, I loaded my suitcase and the rubber plant into the beige Civic she'd mocked. I took one last look at the building. No nostalgia, no anger. It was just a building. Then I drove. I didn't have a destination in mind, just direction, away. I drove for hours until I found a quiet coastal town I'd never heard of. I rented a small, furnished apartment with a view of the ocean. The first thing I did was set the rubber plant by the window, where it would get the morning sun. The silence was profound. For the first week, I did nothing but exist. I walked on the beach. I learned the rhythm of the tides. I sat in the silence and let myself feel the full, unadulterated weight of the betrayal, not to wallow, but to acknowledge it and let it pass through me. The nice boy was being deconstructed, and I was curiously excited to see what would be built in his place. I didn't just leave a city. I shed a skin. The man who was grateful for a chance was gone. In his place was someone who was starting to understand his own worth. I didn't look for news about Jessica. I didn't have to. The world, especially the small, interconnected world of mutual acquaintances, has a way of delivering karma's report card without you ever asking for it. It started about 2 months after I'd disappeared. A text from Mike, one of my few friends who had never been fully integrated into Jessica's world. Mike, hey man, hope you're doing well out there. You're a legend, by the way. Just heard from Sarah that things blew up with Jessica and Mark. Spectacularly. I stared at the message. I felt nothing. No thrill, no vindication. Just a detached curiosity. like reading a news headline about a country I'd never visited. Me, oh yeah? Mike, yeah? Turns out Mark's ambition was mostly just talk. And he wasn't just exciting, he was volatile. Got into a screaming match with a client and got them both fired. Then Jessica found out he was still officially married, just separated. The guy ghosted her the second the drama started. Left her high and dry. I pictured it. Jessica, who valued appearance and status above all, publicly humiliated. Fired from the job she was so proud of, abandoned by the man she'd traded everything for. The passion she craved had burned her entire life to the ground. Mike, the kicker, her mom, Carol, apparently tried to call you to talk some sense into Jessica after the fact. Couldn't get through. They're telling people you abandoned her in her time of need. A dry, humorless laugh escaped me. The audacity was almost impressive. They had collectively shoved me off a cliff and were now complaining that I wasn't at the bottom to catch them when they jumped. Me, thanks for the update. Hope you're good. Mike, that's it. You're not even a little bit happy about this. I thought about it. Really thought about it. The emotion wasn't happiness. It was something quieter, more profound, validation. Me, it's not my story anymore, Mike. I've got my own to write. And I did. In the quiet coastal town, I was writing a new story. I threw myself into my work and started going to the gym not as a punishment, but as a project. The softness in my body hardened into muscle. I let my hair grow a little longer. I started hiking on the weekends, the salt air cleansing my lungs and my mind. I didn't realize I was thriving until I caught my reflection in a shop window one day and didn't recognize the man staring back. He looked stronger, calmer. His eyes weren't searching for approval, they were just seeing. Meanwhile, the digital ghosts of my past life began to stir. A flurry of messages arrived from unknown numbers, like desperate signals from a sinking ship. Unknown number. Alex, it's Jessica. I know you're getting these. Please, we need to talk. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. Unknown number. Everything is ruined. Mark was a liar. I lost my job. I need you. You were always my rock. Unknown number. So you're just going to ignore me? After everything? You're really that cold? I'm drowning here. I read them with the same detachment as Mike's text. They were not appeals to my heart. They were applications for a position that had long been filled. The role of rock was retired. I was now something less stationary, something that could not be sunk. I deleted each message without a response. The silence, I was learning, was the most powerful reply of all. They were left in the echoing void of their own consequences, wondering what had happened to the nice boy who had simply and permanently disappeared. The messages from the unknown numbers became a strange, digital chronicle of her unraveling. I didn't block them immediately. I read them, not with schadenfreude, but as a scientist might observe a lab experiment, documenting the predictable stages of collapse. Stage 1, the plea. Unknown number 1. Alex, it's Jessica. I know you're getting these. Please. We need to talk. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. Unknown number 2. Everything is ruined. Mark was a liar. I lost my job. I need you. You were always my rock. The tone was still tinged with a sense of entitlement, as if her admission of error was a coupon I should immediately redeem for my support. I deleted them. Stage 2, the anger. When silence was my only reply, the tone shifted. The vulnerability evaporated, replaced by the raw fury of someone who wasn't getting their way. Unknown number 3. So you're just going to ignore me? After everything? You're really that cold? I'm drowning here. Unknown number 4. You know what? Fine. You're just as pathetic as I thought. You couldn't handle a real woman, so you ran away. You're a coward. I almost smiled at that one. The man who rebuilt his life from scratch was a coward. The woman who set hers on fire for a fantasy was the real woman. The logic was breathtaking. I deleted them. Then, the cavalry arrived. My phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in months. Sarah, Jessica's best friend. The one who'd always given me tight, perfunctory hugs. I answered, saying nothing. Alex? Hi, it's Sarah. Her voice was artificially bright, laced with a nervous tension. I remained silent. Look, I know this is weird, but I'm calling about Jessica. Go on, I said, my voice flat. She's not in a good place, Alex. That guy Mark really did a number on her. He cleaned out her savings before he left. She's She's kind of a mess. I'm sorry to hear that, I said mechanically. The words were empty of all meaning. She needs you, Alex. She really does. She sees now what she had. You were so good to her. You're a good guy. Good guys don't just abandon people when they're at their lowest, right? The manipulation was so clumsy, it was almost admirable. She was trying to use my old identity, the good guy, as a lever to pry me open. Sarah, I said, cutting her off. I'm not a good guy. I'm just a guy, and I'm no longer available for the role of emotional cleanup crew. Goodbye. I hung up and blocked the number. The silence that followed felt cleaner than before. The final attempt came from the source I should have expected. A new number, but the voice was unmistakably Carol's. The syrupy condescension was gone, replaced by afraid, demanding urgency. Alex, it's Carol. We need to talk. No, honey, no, dear. I'm listening, I said, my tone implying I was doing her a great favor. Jessica is devastated. She's living on my couch, for God's sake. She's applied for a dozen jobs and gotten nothing. That monster left her with nothing but debt and a broken spirit. I said nothing. I just let the weight of her words hang in the digital space between us. Alex, are you there? You need to talk to her. You were the only one who ever could calm her down. She needs to hear your voice. She needs to know you don't hate her. Ah, there it was. It was never about my pain. It was about absolving her daughter's guilt. My forgiveness was just a tool to make Jessica feel better. Carol, I said, my voice as calm and final as a judge's gavel. I don't hate her. I could hear her relieved sigh on the other end. Oh, thank goodness, I knew. I don't hate her, I repeated, cutting her off. I don't feel anything for her at all. She is a stranger to me, and strangers' problems are not my concern. Do not contact me again. I ended the call before she could sputter a response. I blocked that number, too. I had built a fortress of peace around my new life, and I was no longer accepting surrender from the army that had started the war. Part 5. The final encounter a year to the day after my quiet exit. Business brought me back to the old city. A client meeting, in and out in 24 hours. I'd upgraded my life in more ways than one. The beige Civic was gone, replaced by a sleek, rented sedan. The nice boy wardrobe had been replaced with a well-tailored suit that fit the man I had become. The meeting ended early. Out of a sense of closure, or perhaps just curiosity, I decided to have a coffee at the place Jessica and I used to go on Sunday mornings. It was a test, I suppose, to see if the ghosts still had any power. They didn't. The place was just a coffee shop. The memories were like faded photographs in a book I'd closed long ago. I was at the counter, waiting for my order, when I felt a presence behind me. A familiar, expensive perfume that now smelled cloying and stale. Alex. I turned. It was Jessica. She looked diminished. The fire she'd so cherished was gone, leaving behind ash. Her clothes were expensive but looked tired on her. Her eyes, which had once looked at me with such cold dismissal, were now wide with a desperate hope. My God, she whispered, her voice trembling. It is you. I almost didn't recognize you. You look different. I am different, I said, my voice neutral. I took my coffee from the barista. Hello, Jessica. Can we talk? Just for a minute. She gestured to an empty table. I glanced at my watch. A gesture so casual, so utterly dismissive, that I saw her flinch. I have a few minutes. We sat. She clutched her cup like a lifeline. I've been trying to reach you, she started, her words tumbling out in a rushed, practiced confession. I know you probably hate me, and you have every right to. I was blind. I was stupid. Mark, he was a monster. He used me and left me with nothing. My job, my savings, it's all gone. I've been staying with my mom. I took a sip of my coffee. It was excellent. I said nothing. I see everything so clearly now, she continued, her eyes welling up with tears that, a year ago, would have shattered me. What we had was real. It was solid. You were my rock. I was chasing a fantasy, and I threw away everything real. I need my safe place. I need you, Alex. I need you to forgive me. I set my cup down and looked at her, not through the lens of our past, but as she was in that moment. A woman who had made her bed and was now complaining about the lumps. Jessica, I said, my tone polite but distant, like a banker discussing a loan application. I don't hate you, and there's nothing to forgive. A flicker of hope ignited in her eyes. Really? Really, you were right. You did need excitement. You did need a man with fire. And I needed a partner who valued the man I was, not the fantasy she wanted. Our split was the correct outcome for both of us. The hope in her eyes died, replaced by confusion. What? No. Alex, I was wrong. I don't need that. I need you. You're misunderstanding me, I said, my voice still calm, still firm. I'm not offering you a reconciliation. I'm stating a fact. What we had is over. I've built a life I'm genuinely happy with, and I don't have any room in it for the past. She stared at me, her mouth slightly agape. The tears started to fall in earnest now, but they were tears of frustration, of a plan failing. But I love you. Don't you love me anymore? It was the final, desperate gambit. I looked at her, this woman who had once held my heart in her hands and had treated it as a mundane trinket, and I felt a profound and absolute nothing. Jessica, I said, standing up and straightening my jacket. The man who loved you doesn't exist anymore. You made sure of that. And honestly, I like the man I am now much, much better. I truly hope you find what you're looking for, but you won't find it with me. My peace is far too valuable. I didn't wait for a response. I turned and walked out of the coffee shop, the same bell jingling behind me. The sun was warm on my face. I took a deep breath, not of free air this time, but of air that was simply air. She was no longer a ghost. She was just a person I used to know. I got into my rented car and drove towards the airport, towards my life. I didn't look back. There was nothing there for me to see. That was the last time I ever saw or spoke to Jessica. The client meeting was a success, a testament to the focus and clarity I'd found in my new life. I flew back to the coast, back to my apartment with the ocean view and my thriving rubber plant. The texts from unknown numbers trickled off, then stopped completely. The silence, once again, was absolute. It was the silence of a door not just closed, but bricked over. About 6 months later, Mike sent me one last piece of information, a postscript to a story I'd already finished reading. Mike ran into Sarah. Said Jessica is still living with her mom, working some admin job she hates. Apparently, she tells people you changed and became cold. They're still wondering what happened to such a nice boy. I read the message and felt a wave of nothing. No anger, no satisfaction. Just a quiet acknowledgement. Thanks, Mike. Take care. I put my phone down and looked out at the ocean. The waves were constant, relentless, erasing old footprints and smoothing the sand. That's what I had done. I had kept moving, and the tide of my new life had washed away every last trace of the man I used to be. They weren't wondering where I went. They were wondering where their convenient, dependable, emotionally available puppet had disappeared to. The answer was simple. He finally cut his own strings. I didn't disappear. I was upgraded. And the old version? It was deleted forever, leaving nothing behind but a ghost story they tell each other, trying to puzzle out why the doormat they used to wipe their feet on suddenly wasn't there anymore. The nice boy was gone, and I was finally, completely free. Thanks for watching.